to The Revolution. Today we're going to be taking a look at an automatic pie setup. This video is primarily being shot for a specific customer, but I thought it might be of some use to some of you guys to see what these machines are and what they're all about. So the setup includes a pastry depositor, a rotary table automatic pie machine and an auto filling depositor on the other side. The complete setup is about 3.1 metres in length and takes up somewhere just under a metre in depth. Everything is wired for single phase supply in this particular case, although the pie machine is generally 3-phase as standard. Now, because the setup is for a specific customer, it's actually been wired to suit electric supply for the USA. I will not be able to plug things in and run them today, but you should, with the magic of editing, be now watching a short clip of the pastry depositor and the 8 station running in tandem, and that is these specific machines. Unfortunately, the filling depositor at the time of this particular video being shot was missing a component, so that wasn't used. However, you should now be seeing some footage of the 3 machines working together. It is not this exact setup, but obviously the machines are comparable. I think it's producing mince pies. So we'll take a look at each machine individually, how it's set up, how it plugs together and how it operates, and then towards the end of the video we'll have a look at how these will be packed. Okay, so jumping straight in with the Deighton. It's a Deighton Formatic R1200 180 machine, so it will drop 2,400 pieces per hour on max speed. The general concept of the machine is dough is introduced into the hopper and it is pushed into a drum that is made to a specific shape, and the thickness of the deposit can be altered, allowing you to drop weighted quantities of whatever shape it is that you require. They will run along the conveyor and of course either be deposited at the other end onto a tray, or in this case directly onto the pie machine. Now, it is recommended initially to maybe run the machine standalone. That can be done utilising the switch on the left hand side. There's a 2-way switch, left and right. Left, it will operate off the signals from the 8 station, and to the right it operates off the start and stop buttons that are located on the box. If you were to stand the machine alone, just for the first run throughs, maybe whilst you establish the weights of the deposits, which we'll look at a little bit closer, or even just for any teething issues that you may have, it's much easier to deal with when the machine is isolated. So it's recommended to run it alone to begin with. Now, the general connections, everything's excellent, given that you can't plug anything anywhere that it's not supposed to. So 2 connections for the Deighton. One is a UK 3-pin single phase plug, and the other is a bayonet type connection with a threaded wheel on it. We'll just take a look at where these get plugged in. Okay, so just looking at the back of the 8 station, you'll see here there's a little black flap. This is for the 3-pin single phase plug, and the bayonet attachment just goes here underneath on this side of the box, plugs in and then screwed to secure. This machine has an increased hopper of 40 litres to allow us to put larger quantities of dough in, so we're not refilling quite as often. And it also has a 1 metre extended conveyor. The reason for this is that it allows the paste, after it's been deposited from the drum, a duration of time before it's pressed out on the 8 station, reducing the chance of shrinkage. If your paste is already experiencing shrinkage when it's being pressed out on a manual machine or through general handling, then you might find that that is slightly elevated once it's going through this process, and you might need to consider remedies for that. Some people will introduce relaxants, some people will increase the rest time, allowing the dough after it's been deposited to have a duration of rest. Some people will refrigerate the paste once it's been pressed out, and then there is obviously the old school method of increasing the fat slightly, decreasing the water quantity slightly, as if the water is too high then you'll experience shrinkage anyway. But beyond that, everything within the machine is geared towards reducing that shrinkage. So you shouldn't see anything too extreme, but again, if you experience it currently, that might be slightly exacerbated once it's been put through this machine and also the automatic pie machine. Okay, so the 1 metre conveyor, very simple to take off. There's a hand nut here, and there is 2 holes on the conveyor that allow it to be mounted. So if I just turn that off there. Once we do this, lifting it up, we get a bit of slack on the belt, which can be slid off. Like so. When you do mount the conveyor or take it off, do be aware the belt on the inside has a ridge, and that ridge should sit between the plastic roller at the end of the conveyor and also the plastic roller on this one as well. That's going to help keep the belt straight, nice and tracked. Okay, the hopper and the drum. To remove the drum, you will need to loosen off the hopper, rotate it. There's a little safety bar here that will prevent the drum from coming off, so we need to look at that. Removing the hopper to get to the blades for cleaning or maintenance. Again, wheel nuts that we just loosen off, one on each corner as it were. We do a rotation to the right, and then we can lift that off. So now you can see the blades on the inside. Obviously you can access them for cleaning, easy cleaning. The drum, this machine's being supplied with 2 drums. Take the hand nut off, there's a covering plate just here, and then the drum will slide off. I've got the other drum here, and this is what it looks like when it's off. These are round deposits, and the pistons on the inside, spring loaded. Now, to get the correct weight, if you are working to a specific weight, then obviously you'd need to run off a puck or 2 to begin with, weigh those, and then obviously we can make an adjustment on the thickness to either increase or decrease that weight. If it's more of a visual thing where you're just looking to cover over the edge of the foil or the tin, whatever you press into, and you want to keep that to a minimum, again you need to consider shrink back. If you're experiencing a lot of that, then you'll need more of an overhang, but if you're not, which is obviously what we're aiming for, then you'll be able to keep better track of stock. In order to adjust the piston depth, which I'd say currently is probably around about 25 mil maybe. In the side of the drum here, this nut, again it's a hand wheel, we can loosen that off, and then that allows us to operate this spiral behind, which you can now see we've reduced that to about 10 mil, and then we'll lock that back up, and that'll deposit at 10 mil. Once you've worked it to the correct thicknesses, if you are depositing more than one product, and obviously they're different weights, then it'd be recommended that we just mark the inside. Once you've found the current weight, if we mark that against this metal pin here, large pie, small pie, whatever the case may be, it means that when it comes to adjusting it, you can just move this to the mark and then pinch it back up, throw it on the machine and away you go. There is a keyway, so when putting this onto the shaft, obviously ensure that the keyway is in the right direction, and you'll notice that these drums are knurled. Okay, that is intentional. If it's a smooth drum, then when the machine operates, it's going to throw pastry absolutely everywhere. So these are knurled, and what will happen is when you turn the machine on, the entire drum will become coated in your paste, and that is intentional, and that allows the machine to operate correctly. So don't be alarmed if it ends up all spread around the drum, and then it should stay like that throughout. Final thing to look at, again on this specific machine, we have an auto wire cleaner. Generally only required if you intend to put meat through the machine. If you're going to just put dough or pastry, you can use a manual wire cleaner. But obviously we considered in this instance that it would be better to have it for future if required. So the auto wire cleaner. Now the wire should be, when the piston is out, because obviously as it comes round it's going to push the product or push the deposit out, and the piston will come out slightly further than the edge of the drum. The wire wants to just be on the face of the piston as it's at its furthest point. That means that obviously as it comes round, the wire is going to nicely trim away the puck or the deposit. This machine has been set, however obviously during transit and things like that it could take a knock and not quite be cutting at the right position. If that is the case, there's a small plastic cap here. If you remove that, I believe it's an Allen key fitting, and you can use that to just adjust the position of the wire against the drum. I don't see it being an issue, but just in case it moves, or if it moves in the future, you can do that. The wire over time might snap, that's something to consider. There is replacement wire in there for you, and it's quite easy to see where it tracks through and how it's pinched up. Any issues with that, you can consult the manual. Of course, we're here as well, you can give us a shout if needs be. But effectively, that's the Deighton. Okay, so this is the Beldos. This is the auto filling depositor. It is air driven, does not require any sort of electrical supply. It does require about 7 bar of air pressure directly, and that's connected just on this end here at the top, where the filter and regulator is. Obviously you can introduce that air supply and regulate that as required. The general premise is very simple. Obviously filling is introduced into the hopper, and it will deposit filling with chunks up to about 25 millimeters or 1 inch, as the case may be. Connections are really easy on this one. Coming out the back of the aid station, there's a red cable and a black cable. These are both air lines, and the signal from the aid station to the filling depositor will be air controlled. And these connect into the back of the Beldos. There is only 2 openings, 2 fittings, and you can't interchange those, so nothing to worry about there. Deposit quantity adjustment. Now we can't run this machine isolated, the same as the Deighton, only because in order to do so you'll need a foot switch, which of course isn't supplied in this case. But what you can do is just angle the machine away, so each time the aid station presses, someone obviously can be offering up a container so that you can take a quantity of filling to govern how much it's depositing. You'll see along here possibly there's markings from 10% up to 100%, and that adjustment is how we can define the quantity that's being deposited. Again, once you've decided what percentage mark relates to what weight of which of your product, then you can again either mark the steel below, put a sticker on the top, something just to indicate so that you can easily move it as you're changing from one product to another. The entire thing does disassemble for cleaning purposes. Everything is on wing nuts and hand clamps, so there's nothing that you need any tools for, but again this can be undone, taken away, Same here and the same with the hopper. There is a safety switch that's via the steel wire that is wrapped around the hopper at the bottom. If that safety switch is not in place, that safety pin, sorry, is not in position, the machine won't action. The final thing, and this was emphasised, was this particular barrel does pull out, and once this is disassembled you can also get access to the barrel here. On those barrels they have rubber seals. There is some grease that is supplied, and it has been recommended that as soon as the machine arrives, a bit of grease on those seals, and any time that you clean them or take those out, you want to be putting a bit of grease on those. It was emphasised to me that without that, if those stick, then the machine will not work. Final thing to say, it is height adjustable. Obviously with the wind downs you can see that's quite simple. There is some cleaning tools that are sent with this, along with replacement seals as necessary, and majority of people will just flush the system through with warm to hot water, obviously at the end of each shift. And now, of course, the mighty aid station. Automatic pie machine, presses between 1500 and 2400 presses per hour, has been manufactured for around about 70 years, purely mechanical, so anything that may go wrong is very easily switched out, and to be honest, one of the best machines in the industry. Okay, so we'll take a closer look at the control box. At the top here we have the digital thermostat for the die. Now the die is connected via a 3-pin connection just inside the gate there. We'll have a look when we change the die over. In order to alter the temperature, it will likely be preset around 55 degrees off memory. If you need to alter that for your pastry, if you find that the pastry is sticking to the die and it is not an air release issue, it could be the temperature of the die, and in order to change that, if I remember correctly, we hold down P and then we use the up and down arrows to adjust the temperature, and then press P again and it will lock that in. Again, off memory, there is a green number and a red number. The green number is our temperature that we're aiming for, and the red number off memory is the temperature that the die is currently. It should fluctuate slightly. As you press each product out, it does draw heat out of the die, so you might find a fluctuation between 1, 2, 3 degrees, but the idea is that obviously once it hits temperature it will cut the power, and if it drops too low it will reintroduce the power. Yeah, don't hold me to all that. There will be a small instruction manual supplied with this, but off memory that is the case. These are obviously just indicators as to whether the safety circuit is live and whether the heating element is in fact on. We've got a start and a stop, obviously self-explanatory, and don't forget when the Beldos and the Formatic are plugged up to it, that will also action those machines, provided they are switched on if necessary. And then we've got the speed, and it's measured from 0 to 10. Basically on the slowest speed it's going to press about 1500 times per hour, and on the highest speed it's going to press about 2400 times per hour, both of which the filling depositors can keep up with that, so that's not an issue. We've got an emergency stop button, the mains isolator switch, and of course the reset button. There is a motor in here, which of course motors can become overheated and things like that, so that's where that would come in. The guard for the entire machine, we have limit switches on these. If this guard is pushed back or pulled forward slightly, the machine will not operate. So if you're pressing start and nothing's happening, just make sure the guards are sat where they should be, and that's the same on this side as well, meaning that obviously no one can get access to anything that's going to injure them. Okay, so to open the guard, very simple, just pull it away, and that'll give us access to the die equipment behind. Here you'll see the airline feed for the air release. Okay, We'll look at the control that's just up here. There's a regulator dial there, and again we can regulate that down. With air release on a rotary machine, we want to be putting out about 2 to 2.5 bar as a maximum. There's no need to go over that. What tends to happen is if a product does lift for whatever reason, staff will generally just turn that air release up, believing that to be the issue, and then they'll continue to increase that. Once you go up over 2.5, maybe 3 bar, what you'll find is that it actually has the reverse effect and actually starts creating a vacuum. I'm not entirely sure of the science of how that works, but that is what we've found. So it wants to be regulated to 2.5 bar or under. If you find that it's not working, the likelihood is the valve will be sticking, and there may be some bits of flour and fat stuck in there, so it might need a little clean out. The valve may have failed and want replacing. Alternatively, it might not be an air issue. If you can feel air coming under the die, then the likelihood is it's a heating issue, and maybe increase the temperature of the die. A good indicator of whether it's an air problem or a heat problem is when the product is taken off the die after sticking. If there's bits of pastry stuck to the die, it's probably a heating issue. If there's no pastry and it's come away clean, it most likely will be an air release issue. So we'll just need to check the supply and make sure that we're getting a good run through. Now the connection is a push fit elbow, 8mm, and there's a little collar on here. You probably won't be able to see it on the video. There's a little collar on here. That collar needs to be pulled back before it's taken off the die. If you try to just pull it off the die, which most staff will do, the collar will damage and it will start to leak air and it will fail. It's one of the most common faults because people just pull. Make sure that's drawn back and then pulled. And it goes onto the die air inlet pipe of all the dies that you have that are fitted with air release. Obviously, if the die does not have air release, then just make sure it's tucked away and it's not going to get squashed by the die during use. Okay, at the back here there is a element cable on a spring clip. And the spring clip can just be moved out of the way, and then the cable will be pulled out the back of the die, and that's now free from the die. When changing the die, there's a couple of wing nuts on the top, that's all it is, but the dies can be quite heavy, so what I would suggest, there is a hand wheel on the back, which we'll talk about shortly as well, in case we get any jams and things like that, but you can actually operate the hand wheel to lower the die. You should see that lowering now, and we'll lower it to its lowest position. You might want to put some sort of cloth or tea towel in there just to do it, but once the die is down in its most down position, you can then undo the wing nuts, and of course the die is not going to drop down suddenly. And it's just these two wing nuts here, and again the other dies are exactly the same, so once you took the wing nuts off, you'll be able to wind that back up and the die will remain in the base below, and of course the new die going on would be the reverse. Plug that back up. Do be careful when changing dies or conducting maintenance. If they have been recently used, they will hold residual heat, so make sure you're wearing PPE as necessary, or allow the die time to cool, which will likely take some time. So yeah, please do be careful with that. We'll just take a quick look at the table. All your base dies, off memory, have base ejection. These are simple pegged base bottoms that go inside. On the right hand side underneath the table there is a ramp, and as it comes round it hits the ramp and pushes up. You might find that if the bases are allowed to get dirty and remain dirty, flour, fats and such, maybe fillings, you might find that these start to stick. But you can see how it elevates the product, allowing easy retrieval, especially when the machine is operating at higher speeds. Quick couple of things to run through. Inside the drawer there is a blowgun attachment. Again, it's a standard airfit female attachment that is connected around the back here, and it's just a blowgun obviously for cleaning purposes. There's a small box of spares. Within there is a key. In fact, I'll show you. There. That is the key. Do not lose this. It is going to make your life a whole lot easier in the future, because the downshaft, the main downshaft on the machine that the die attaches to, inside of there is two springs. One is a heavy spring and one is a light spring, and over time of course they will wear and they will need to be replaced. A good indicator of this is once the lids are being pressed on, you'll notice that it's not quite imprinting the crimp maybe as much, or even on the bases, if it's a rotary die it won't be trimming off quite as cleanly, and again the same with the lids, if it's not cutting off quite as cleanly, and it will likely be those springs. They're very easy to change out and they're reasonable price wise, but that key will make life a lot easier, because there is a nut on the underside of the downshaft, and that is perfect for just drawing those out, and the downshaft will come out. Do take note of how it comes out, because obviously it needs to be put back in the same order, and that is a general maintenance thing. Once every year, once every couple of years, depending on how much you use the machine, they will need swapping out. The final thing, the machine has a small amount of oil in the top currently, and it's just enough to sort of test the machine and try the machine out. When the machine arrives, we have this little bottle here, gearbox oil. That wants to be